Alright, hi, my name is Brian Sell. I'll be doing a presentation here on my research paper, which I did on the Amazon and deforestation. And in case you weren't aware, the Amazon biome itself holds the richest forms of biodiversity on the entire planet, hosting up to about a quarter of the world's known species. Mammals, fish, reptiles, tree species, plant species. Um, and this massive expanse can span all the way through 6 countries here, mostly in Brazil, but also into Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela, and Bolivia, and as well as potentially getting a little bit into other countries such as Guyana. Forms borders there on some of those northern South American countries. And deforestation is a huge problem here, and it's only been increasing in recent years. And so not only is the Amazon important to us as a species, but there's also the biodiversity and all of the things it'll do for the whole global climate, which I'll get into a little bit later here. Um, one predicament here climatologists have come up with as a prediction. They haven't quite figured out if this is going to be exact numbers here yet, but one predicament they're predicting here is that once climate change starts to roll into effect here, and if the Amazon is completely destroyed by whether it be drought, wildfire, deforestation, that it's going to set a bad precedent, and they're predicting to see about a 3 degrees Celsius increase in global temperature if the Amazon were to disappear. And that would also really hurt the precipitation, not just in the region there, but globally by the end of the 21st century. And so that brings us to a tipping point, as they were calling it here. And once that line is crossed, basically we're going to see irreversible climate and environmental damage that cannot be turned back. And one such evident point here they make is the tipping point kind of refers to precipitation. And once the annual precipitation in the Amazon begins to fall beyond its average numbers, it's predicted that that's going to be the first sign that those irreversible damages are coming, and it's almost just about too late to really reverse those. And so, yeah, once that rainfall falls below their average numbers for a year and it continues to drop, that's your first big sign that the the end of the Amazon is most likely on its way. And another underestimated factor in just the sheer damage done to the Amazon comes through mining. And not tons of people uh, respect the amount of damage the that mining has done to the area, especially in the last 3 decades or so. So there's a lot of nutrient-rich areas in the Amazon, mainly just because it's been hard for anyone to really get to them, and they've been protected throughout the years. There's oil deposits, aluminum, all kinds of other minerals in there that people would love to get their hands on. And one good example I found of just how mining has affected the region is I found a group of researchers that compared satellite images from 1985 and 2015. And in 1985, they took leased land permits, kind of put them on a map, so they mapped it out, and then they put that side by side with the satellite image just to see how much damage is being done from those mining organizations in terms of deforestation. And they found a little bit, not too much, but when they compared the same thing for 2015, they found a slightly higher amount of mining operations going on, not an astronomical amount by any means. But what they did show was that the previously all green image, for the most part, had been turned half green, half white, and the green represents covered land by forests, trees, and the white represented just bare land, deforested area, whatever you want to call that. Um, but they were able to really see just in 3 decades how much had changed for the landscape in the region. And I do have some numbers kind of to somewhat put this into perspective here. Let's see. So with those mining leased lands that are really well documented, there were about 2,600 square miles of forest land in 2005. And by the year 2015, that number had been reduced to about just under 2,300 square miles, which is about a 14% reduction in forest cover. And then if you included all the mining lands, not just the leased lands, you'd be seeing about 130,000 square miles in 2005 of forested covered land that's used for mining purposes. And by 2015, that area had been reduced to just 115,000 square miles, which is a 15,000 square mile drop in just 10 years, which just in that interval, that was a 9% decrease in total Amazon forest loss, which is a very large number to be losing in just 10 years like that. And so deforestation will completely change the landscape is another prediction I found. It's kind of a hypothesis at this point. They don't, it's just a really, everything points towards it type of deal here. And they're basically stating here that by the end of the 21st century, with the current rate of change in our climate and precipitation, that the Amazon's going to be converted into a savanna or tropical savanna climate, and that's going to completely dismantle what we have there right now, which is, lots of annual precipitation, high humidity, lots of rich biodiversity, and pretty much all that's going to get thrown out the window. It's going to be typical savanna climate there. And that brings up a couple points here. I want to talk about how that's going to really affect not just the region there in South America, but it's going to affect the world there. And that the first point here is that the Amazon alone, just through the massive amount of trees it has, produces about 20% of the entire world's oxygen, which is incredible considering just this small little region here is putting out a fifth of the world's oxygen supply. Is kind of mind-boggling, but that is all at risk here with this deforestation. With every day passing, more and more trees are being taken down at a faster rate that they're growing and being replenished. So that percentage here has already got to be dropping here. And another huge thing here is it's kind of underestimated, but the Amazon, as I kind of like to say, is a filter per se through for rainwater and global energy. So what we have here is that the Amazon kind of circulates global winds and water, and through precipitation especially, it evaporates about 8 trillion tons of water in a single year, which that is an incredible amount. And all that gets evaporated out and it absorbs just as much water, and all that water goes to use everywhere: rivers, mammals, trees, saturated soils. It goes everywhere. And what rainwater isn't used here is then deposited as runoff into the Atlantic Ocean. And I actually found an interesting number here that 15 to 20% of the world's freshwater runoff comes just from the Amazon basin runoff, or excess precipitation flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. And I thought that was pretty interesting there. And then a crucial part, again, back to climate change here, is that the trees contained within the Amazon contain approximately 90 to 140 billion tons of carbon, which is going to be equivalent to roughly 90 to 140 years worth of human carbon emissions at our current rate. And with those kind of numbers, it would be really hard to picture just how much influence that would have on our current climate, but that would have to really increase our global temperature. It's going to increase our percentage of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and the impact on the world then would be pretty catastrophic. What little polar ice is left would melt at historically fast rates. The weather patterns would become more erratic, and seasons would change. It would pretty much bring about irreversible climate change at that point because there's not going to be tons we can do if it gets to be that bad. Fortunately, though, there are steps being taken to try and preserve the Amazon at this point. There's plenty of organizations out there that are trying to set up reserves, protected areas, indigenous land for tribe people, that kind of deal. There's also plenty of governments trying to get involved to pass legislature to enforce more strict laws on eco-friendly practices, ethical practices, limiting toxic runoff, limiting deforestation, making sure they try and keep the environment as clean as it was before they got there if they are going to go mine or if they're going to explore and that type of deal. And overall, this resource has definitely got to be conserved, not just for human use, but just for the sake of no matter what we have in the Amazon that we could use for financial gain or resources to help us expand civilization, whatever that may be. um, our current our current situation shows that's going to be a serious issue come the day where the Amazon is going to go under, which hopefully doesn't happen. But at this rate, it's only a matter of time before that happens, unless something drastic is going to change here. Um, and yeah, those resources that we want from the Amazon simply are not worth destroying the Amazon. And hopefully that's been proved evident through this, but it's going to take some convincing to be able to change the minds of some people that see it otherwise. And hopefully by that time, it's not too late.